Since Donald Trump's first victory back in 2016, the biggest question that has been on Republican voters' minds is who will lead the party after Donald Trump? Who will fill the void? When Donald Trump came in, when he entered the Republican primary, he filled a void that was in the Republican Party. He represented a faction of the American electorate that did not have a voice, did not feel they had a voice in the Republican Party. And now, with Donald Trump term limited at the end of his term in 2028, the biggest question on everyone's mind is who will lead the Republican Party forward? And I believe right now that JD Vance is the best position to lead the party forward and to win in 2028. And I believe that if he is leading the party, he will dominate in 2028. JD Vance he went from a critic of Donald Trump back in 2016 to a supporter, to a senator, to the vice president of the United States of America under Donald Trump in his second administration. I truly believe that JD Vance would dominate not only a Republican primary, I believe that he would dominate a general election based on where the Democrats are right now. The Democrats, it is very fair to say, they have one of the weakest benches of candidates that we've seen in probably 2 decades. At least 2008. It's like, this is terrible. This is who the Democrats have. They have Kamala Harris, who now, in the polling aggregate, continues to drop 24%. Not even 1 in 4 voters in the Democrat primary on average are selecting Kamala Harris. 3 out of 4. If you were to look at Kamala Harris's resume, take her name away from it, look at her resume. She was the Attorney General of California. She was a senator from California. She was the vice president of the United States. She was the 2024 nominee for about 100 days for the Democrats. Consider that resume, and it is hard to believe that anyone else would be polling this badly. She should be polling at least 50% in these polls, at least 50%. You have Pete Buttigieg, who may be a halfway decent communicator, but struggles extremely bad with minority voters. I mean, really bad. Black voters. There were some polls in 2020 where he was polling at 0% among African Americans in a very, very big primary in South Carolina. You have AOC. She can raise a lot of money, but it is very clear that rank and file Democrats are not in line with AOC. Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro. This is a pretty weak bench. Tim Walz. Josh Shapiro might be good. I think Josh Shapiro is like the Democrat version of Ron DeSantis, if I'm being 100% honest. He likes to do his job very well. Not only is he a good politician, but he likes to do the actual job of being governor well, and he's meticulous about it. But would the Democrats ever nominate a Jewish man? And the Democrats have a lot of issues where you are seeing within the Democrat Party right now, instead of trying to make this one big tent to fit as many people under it as possible, the Democrat Party is specifically going out of their way to exclude certain groups of people from the Democrat Party. They've gone out of their way to exclude young men, to say that their voice is not valuable, their ideas are not valuable, that they're young, they're men, they're white, they need to sit down and be quiet. Talk about traditional men. By traditional standards, the strong men, traditionally strong men. And I don't mean just physically. I mean mentally. Those types of men, they've been totally excluded from the Democrat Party. Look at Latinos. Donald Trump made the biggest gains with Latinos in the 2024 election, where Democrats they went from in 2020 winning over 60% of the Latino vote to winning only 46% of the Latino vote. 46% in 2024. Because there was this idea in Democrat politics that if we became strong on the border, we would lose support with Latinos, which could be further from the truth. Donald Trump was the strongest candidate on illegal immigration, and he's made gains with Latinos en masse. There's 2 places you can look to really see. 3 counties here in Florida: Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade. Go back to 2016. Hillary Clinton wins Miami-Dade by 30 points. She wins Broward by 35. She wins Palm Beach by 15. Fast forward to 2024. Donald Trump wins Miami-Dade by 11. Harris only wins Broward by 17. Palm Beach, barely Kamala Harris sneaks out a win by less than a percentage point. Look at this right here. From the 2016 election, Miami-Dade moved 41 points to the right. Broward County moved 18 points to the right. Palm Beach moved 14 points to the right. Double-digit margins here that you're seeing for Donald Trump. And these are communities that are 60, 70, 80% Latino here. Huge populations of Latinos. You see the same thing in Texas on these border states or border counties. We'll do the same thing. We'll compare it to previous elections. 2016, look at this. These are counties where you have 90%, 80, 90% Latinos in these communities. You're seeing it move to Trump by 40 points, 43, 76, 55, 53, 45, 74, 33 points, moving towards the Republican Party and Donald Trump. The Democrats are truly at a crossroads right here, and they're in a terrible spot. And that's why I believe not only because of the strength of the Republican Party right now, but also because of the extreme weakness of the Democrat Party, JD Vance will be positioned very well to dominate. And this is the biggest reason, I shouldn't say the biggest, but one of the big reasons. Look right here. Everyone likes to say Donald Trump, he's all about himself. He only cares about himself. So he's never thinking about anybody else. Why is it that you now have the first vice president to be leading the RNC finance chair? He is leading the finance committee inside the Republican National Committee. This is huge. It is a historic move for a sit-in vice president, which this role will provide him with access to major Republican donors to build those relationships for 2028, especially in Silicon Valley. You want to talk about another group of people that Democrats have said, you're not welcome in our party. That's tech bros. 2016 and 2020, tech bros were big for the Democrat Party. They did everything they could to make sure Hillary Clinton won in 2016. They did everything they could to make sure Joe Biden won in 2020. But the Democrats' policies for the tech bros were so bad under the Biden economic plan, the Biden economic policy, that they became major. They felt, they may not agree with everything Donald Trump says or the Republicans do, but they were welcome in the Republican Party. But with Vance having this strategic role as the RNC finance chair, it will give him influence to the rules that will govern in the 2028 primary process, which will strategically position and enhance his ability to build a serious funding operation and campaign infrastructure, and to have that financial back in there before the 2028 election even begins. This has never happened before. This didn't happen when it was Reagan and George H.W. Bush. It didn't happen when it was Bill Clinton and Al Gore. It didn't happen when it was Obama and Joe Biden. No vice president has had access in modern history to the fundraising network that Donald Trump is allowing JD Vance to rub elbows with. Recently, JD Vance even just hosted a $1 million per head fundraiser in Las Vegas. Those relationships with big money donors is something you can't replicate that. Those relationships take time to build, and JD Vance has the opportunity to build those relationships. And of course, we know that JD Vance is very much in line with the MAGA movement right now. He's a staunch supporter of Donald Trump and his America First agenda. And his alignment with the MAGA base, which will remain a dominant force within the Republican Party going forward, will give him strong appeal among grassroots voters. The serious MAGA wing of the party really wanted JD Vance. There's a lot of people who did not want Marco Rubio, but there's a lot of those people have been starting to come around to Marco Rubio after they've seen how great he's been as Secretary of State. And his loyalty is seen as a huge asset. Huge asset here, especially with the fact that Donald Trump has roughly a $600 million war chest as of right now. A $600 million war chest, which is 100% unprecedented for a president in his second term or even his first term. Because Donald Trump has made it clear he wants to win the 2026 midterms. Not only does he want to win the 2026 midterms, he wants to have influence in the Republican Party going forward. He's amassed at least $600 million in political donations right now, with the ultimate goal of raising $1 billion or more to back his agenda to hold the House and Senate in November 2026. And this is very unusual and unheard of for a president. It's like, it's just almost, we've almost never seen something like this before. I guess unprecedented. Where you have Trump very eager to make sure that Democrats do not win the 2026 midterms. He saw what happened in 2018. They took control of the House. They launched investigations against him. They impeached him. They did anything they could to stop his agenda. He does not want history to repeat itself in 2026 and in the last 2 years of his presidency. But for JD Vance, Vance is one of the best communicators in the Republican Party right now. Donald Trump's a good communicator. Let's not get us wrong. But JD Vance is an even better communicator. He is so good. Like after his debate versus Tim Walz in the 2024 election, his favorability rating improved by like 9, 10, 11 points, depending on what poll you looked at. In his combative, media-savvy approach really makes him a formidable campaigner. It's very good. And then the simple fact that Vance is the first millennial vice president which offers a huge generational contrast to older politicians. In his youth and relatable background, growing up in poverty, in a Rust Belt state like Ohio, which resonates with working class voters, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, like Michigan, which are critical for presidential elections, and especially going forward, it would be very, very critical to win the Rust Belt right here. We know the Sun Belt is probably leaning more right, especially Nevada and Arizona is going to lean more to the right. I think you can say that North Carolina, I think Democrats, the Democrats have a very shaky foundation in Georgia and in North Carolina. That's why I would probably still have these going Republican in 2028. But this is where it's at, baby. This is where the money's at. And I think having this story of growing up in poverty, with parents who are addicted, or a mom who was addicted to drugs, who the dad was out of the picture, who became a Marine, who ended up becoming a private equity guy. I think it is a great story to tell. And I think people like those types of stories. And you don't have to come from this humble beginnings for it to be a good story. It can just be a good story. You know, you saw that with Donald Trump. And with this $600 million that Donald Trump has, not only will he use this to win in 2026, this is money he will be using to make sure that if he endorses JD Vance, he will put money behind it. He doesn't have anything else he can run for now. He's not going to run for something else. And Donald Trump has called JD Vance and Marco Rubio both very, very capable and potential successors. But I think, you look at the polling data right now, Vance is getting about 40 to 45%. The most recent poll, actually Marco Rubio jumped up to almost 19 points in the most recent Atlas Intel poll. He was only polling 5, 6, 4, 2, 5, 3, 3. The highest we had him at in the poll was 9% in here. 18%, really eating right into JD Vance. And Ron DeSantis kind of holding right around 8, 9, 10 percentage points in here. That you're seeing. But ultimately, JD Vance will be a very, very good successor for Donald Trump. And with Donald Trump having $600 million as of right now, and he will use this to elect in 2028. He doesn't want his administration, everything they've done, to come to a standstill in 28 and be reversed by the Democrats over the next 4 years. He will use this money to make sure that Republicans win, not only down ballot, but at the top of the ticket. And for all of these reasons, I really do believe that JD Vance will dominate. There's so many reasons. You look at the Democrat side, how weak they are, how they've been exiled right now. They're totally out in the wilderness. The fact that Donald Trump is raising hundreds of millions of dollars right now, wants to have $1 billion in a year from now, to be able to go after the 2026 midterms and beyond, and in 2028. You look inside of the Republican Party, the strides that they have made with certain minority voters, Latinos, men, working class Americans. It's very clear where the Republican Party has made these gains with, and I feel like JD Vance. And I'm not going to sit here and say I agree with everything JD Vance has to say. I don't agree with all of his policies. We can sit here and nitpick his ends and his means and everything in between, but solely based at possibility of an electoral victory, I really think that JD Vance has a serious opportunity to dominate in the 2028 elections. Take advantage of this extreme vulnerability in the Democrat Party right now. Take advantage of it. But that is going to wrap things up for today, folks. If you liked the video that we got out, drop down below, hit that subscribe button. That's the best way to support our channel right now and in the future. And let me know your thoughts. Do you think that JD Vance will dominate? Do you not? Do you think that someone else will be the Republican nominee? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And as always, we will catch you next time, folks.